Thank you, Prachi. Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon to all of you. Firstly, thank you to all the eminent speakers of this session. We are all grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts and experiences with us. And I must say that I am really excited and honored to be in the same space today with all of you. Now, moving on to yet another stimulating part of the event here at Rajasthan Architecture Festival 2022 in our beautiful heritage city of Jaipur. I am Ruchita Sancheti, the host for this part of the event, and on behalf of the entire RAF organizing committee, we extend our appreciation for your presence today. We have all gathered here to grace the launch ceremony of this amazing book titled HATHIGAON, a settlement for elephants and Mahouts, written by our very own architects from Jaipur, Architect Sanjeev Vidyarthi sir, Architect Megha Bhatnagar, Architect Gaurav Bhatnagar, and Architect Ranjan Bhatt, who hardly needs any introduction. You have all made us proud with your distinguished work in numerous capacities. We have a small video about the book that we want you to see. Can we have the video? Can we have the video, please? Yes.
Hello everyone. This short video introduces a new book on HATHIGAON, which literally translates as Elephant Village, recently built near the famous hill fort of Amer at Jaipur, India. Designed by Boston and Mumbai-based RMA, HATHIGAON is a specialized purpose-built settlement for elephants and their caretakers called Mahouts. This book illustrates the HATHIGAON project in fine-grained detail and would not have been possible without active collaboration among Jaipur-based architects, scholars of urban India, and an architect-owned publishing house. This book also offers a robust template for studying a build project in comprehensive detail, including the backstories, political dynamic, and the underlying planning processes that shape the design and building of that place on the actual ground. What follows this short introduction is key excerpts from the book, including the different chapter titles and vivid graphics explaining the nature of project design in impressive detail. Enjoy.
The book is published by Alterim, and we are also honored to have with us today the publisher of the book, Ariadna Greta. So without any further ado, let us now start the program by welcoming on stage the author, the publisher of the book to please come up on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to them. Congratulations, all of you. It would be really good to hear a few words about the book directly from the authors. Please briefly share your part of the experiences and contribution in the book with us. Sanjeev Vidyarthi sir, I would like to hand over the mic to you.
Thank you, Ruchita. We have a few minutes, and we just want to quickly talk about, how this book came about. But before I do this, I wanted to point out something that stood out very interestingly for me. How rare is it that someone tells you or exhorts you to do something and that actually happens within a few minutes, right? Apurva just finished talking about that architects should be writing. Yeah? That's quick. And these guys don't usually write, right? I have to do it for a living, right? I mean, in the US, you wouldn't make it to tenure if you haven't published. So I do it for a living. But for these guys to be writing is exactly what Apurva was talking about, right? So the first thing to keep in mind. I think that was wonderful. The sense of the program for the next few minutes is each one of us would talk about, let's say, 2-3 minutes about our experiences of writing it. For me personally, in the last few years, as I've been reading and studying and researching and talking and thinking and reflecting upon what's going on, both in terms of architecture and urban planning in this country, a couple things stood out for me. Number one is that we have done, and just the panel I'm coming from was talking about it, Indian architects have been extremely successful in creating world-class projects at the plot level. So if you look at the retail level, both the buildings and the interiors of the buildings, hospitals, schools, shopping malls, hospitals, excellent, world-class projects. You step outside of the plot boundary, and then it's a disaster, right? You say, hey, I'm in a different country. Something just happened. If you look at the regional planning level, which urban planners pay attention to, again, we are beginning to see a lot of action. And that action is sort of more in terms of regional infrastructure, so think of highways, think of electrical distribution pipelines, think of the internet, think of the telecom connectivity in this country, think of the airports, right? I mean, in all parts of the country. So at the regional level, we're doing fantastic. At the retail level, we are doing great. But the intermediate urban scale is there we have not paid attention to. And what HATHIGAON, a project like HATHIGAON does is to focus at this intermediate urban scale. That's where we want to be paying attention. And that's what this book does, that it looks at the intermediate urban scale and sees why this project happens at that scale. The second point that stood out for me is, and people sort of talk about this notion that India now today, it's been the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, 75 years of independence. I can sort of understand that in the first 30, 40, 50 years of independence, we were a poorer country. We still largely, at some level, many of our citizens and fellow Indians are not very well off. But first 50, 60 years, we were really a poorer country. So we did not have the wherewithal. We did not have the resources to actually start writing, to start creating a discourse of our own, right? Indian architects, as Apurva sort of pointed out correctly, we have not been really building a canon of our own scholarship. One of the ways of theory making is to do case work, right? This is something that architects know well. This is something urban designers know well. This is something urban planners do all the time, is to do case studies. And doing cases, sort of illustrating cases, this is important. मैं बात ये हिंदी में भी repeat कर देता हूँ. जब तक हम अपने cases नहीं अच्छे से study करेंगे, तब तक हम theory building नहीं कर सकते. आप अंग्रेज के कपड़े पहनेंगे, अंग्रेज की आईफोन चलाएंगे और अंग्रेज की तरह जीन्स को फटा करके पहनेंगे, क्योंकि आप अपनी theory building नहीं कर रहे. One of the ways to do theory building is to do cases first. Once we have a good collection of cases, then we can use that to build theory. This is what this book does. It takes HATHIGAON as a case, it puts it in the intellectual trajectory of the development of architecture in this country, the regional history, the regional environment history of Jaipur's regional environment, and then it sort of talks about why this project becomes interesting when we look at these prisms, right? Theory building. तो अगर आप सही में अगर हम ये वर्नैकुलर वगैरह की जो बात करते हैं और मैं हर जिस कॉन्फ्रेंस में जाता हूँ उसमें इंडियन लोग हमारी थ्योरी और अंग्रेज का मॉडल और हम छोड़ देंगे और ये करेंगे, 20, 25, 30 साल तो मुझे देखते हुए हो गए. केस कम से कम ये किताबें शुरू कर दें, अपूर्वा की क्लास लें, इन तीनों से सीखें कि ये कैसे लिखा जाता है, and start doing. Anyone can do it. If Rajan and Megha and Gaurav, these are all busy practitioners. If they can find time, and Sanjeev is always there, right? I flew thousands of miles just to be here for this. All right. So now I'll hand it over to my fellow authors to describe their experience of writing it, right? This is the important part of the presentation. I was just setting it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjeev, sir. First of all, thank you, IIA, and thank you to the Rajasthan Architecture Festival for having this book launch here. We are so happy. Especially, this is special because it's happening in our own Jaipur. So, very happy about that. And like Sanjeev sir said, कि लिखना भी सीख रहे हैं और बोलना भी सीख रहे हैं. So, he's very articulate. I'm happy working behind a desk. But yeah, so here I am. So, interestingly, this happened on a dinner conversation with Sanjeev sir and Rahul Mehrotra sir, when we were just discussing over Chinese food, that how, I mean, there should be something documented about HATHIGAON since it's such a unique project. So then one thing led to another, and it was conceptualized mainly by Sanjeev sir. So what I found really interesting was that this is for the first time that there's an architectural project of this nature, and we are looking at it from various perspectives. Usually you document an architecture project, there are pictures, there are drawings, and there are thoughts of the architect. But this is the first time that we are sort of looking at various perspectives. First, the architect, of course, and then there is the client, the end user, and various other agencies who are involved, the landscape architect, so many people. So that was the interesting part. My part of the book is called Reading Beyond the Craft. So it is essentially, we identified who all are part of this whole, this is a long project. So I always have this joke that this project has the gestation period of a hathi, because it has ran for 12 years, still not complete. And interestingly, the book also took the gestation period of a hathi because we started writing in 2018. And then COVID came, and then everybody knows the story. So we identified 4 people, of course, Rahul Mehrotra sir being the architect of the project, and NC Goyal Saab, who was the JDA commissioner at one point, and then later he went on to he had various departments under him, the forest department, the art and culture, and the tourism department. And then there was Balu Bhai. Balu Bhai is now the president of the Elephant Welfare Association. So key people who were, he's the key person who represents the users, the Mahouts and the families. And then there was Mohan Raoji, who was the landscape architect, and he's from Bangalore. So we identified these 4 people and I interviewed them, 2 face-to-face and 2 on the phone. So this was the first time I was interviewing people, and I thought I'd done a great job interviewing them. And then after that, I realized there's something called transcription. You just don't interview, you have to then write it out, word by word. And you have to be very conscious of the fact that you don't lose their voice while it should sound articulate as well. So that was it was quite a learning experience for me. And it was painstaking, it was hard work, but it was so, I think it was such a great experience. That is the crux of writing the book for me. Such beautiful insights, and he had immense patience. You know, sustaining a project for 12 years, you all can imagine. एक साल भी मुश्किल से sustain कर पाते हैं, and they did that with changing governments, and you know, changing focus areas, departments saying different things. It was quite a journey. So there's a very interesting graphic in the book, if you see, which highlights this whole thing. How the project started in 2006, and then it took on, various governments kept changing, and how the officers kept changing, and how it took shape that way. So Rahul sir's insights were very nice. Then there was Balu Bhai, the Mahout that I was talking about. So very simple person, and to talk to him was so heartwarming. He said that when Rahul Mehrotra sir's team came for, you know, discussing the design, उन्होंने कहा कि हाथीगांव कैसा बनना चाहिए, बलू भाई से पूछा. तो बलू भाई ने कहा कि जब उन्होंने ये पूछा तो we were so assured कि हमारी बात सुनी जा रही है. So for an architect to first understand the nuances of how this whole thing works, because for the first time they were designing for elephants, that even anthropometrically you don't know what to do with elephants. So that was really nice how the entire community was involved as a part of design. Then Mohan Raoji, who was the landscape architect, was so in sync with how Rahul Mehrotra sir was thinking about the project, like how water was the key feature, how to bring in water from all over. And they were so much in sync in terms of plantation, and they were not classically landscaping. You know, they were very much aware of what the site really needed. They worked very well in tandem. And NC Goyal Saab, who was the bureaucrat that I interviewed, and he was very kind, and he was the key person who really pushed the project forward when he could. So these were the people I interviewed, and some great learnings there. And I think Sanjeev sir kind of led the way for us, and I hope he did a good job, sir. What do you think? The grading is still to be announced. Sorry? Sorry? The grading is still to be announced. The grading, okay. I'll wait for the grading then. So now I'll hand over to Gaurav, and he'll share some of his views. Thank you, guys.
Let me start by thanking Sanjeev sir, because he mentored us through the project, and I think I was instrumental in delaying the book also because for the longest time, and one point of time Sanjeev sir said, I'll cut your name from the authorship if you but that worked. Actually, while studying architecture, I was very thankful to my brother who introduced me to birding, as in bird watching in the real sense. But but it's been 20 years, and I've pursued that hobby very seriously. And what it has given me is a very different perspective. Because when you start observing birds, you start observing nature, you start observing trees, you start observing shrubs, you start seeing insects, you start seeing wildflowers. And it's a very, very close connect to ecology, nature, and habitat. And it's a very, very, it's very thrilling, as well as it's, you get disappointed when you see when, you know, there's a lovely area and you go the next year, there's a building coming up. And everything is gone. Because that deep understanding of ecology within architects is very rare. And because I had such a close hand watching these things, and I understood that I was on the other side of architecture. जो सबसे बेकार प्लॉट होता था, जहाँ पे झाड़ झंकार होते थे, वहाँ पे सबसे ज़्यादा बायोडाइवर्सिटी मिलती थी. So landscape, Harsh is there, he's a landscape architect, but for me, landscaping is a four-letter word. Because the typical landscape just has no respect for local ecology, local habitat, the natural habitat of the place, and architects have a key role, because they shape up, architect and landscape designers, they have a very key role in shape, especially in projects like HATHIGAON, where the area allows you, it gives you that bandwidth that you can actually work with nature really. So what I had tried is to understand a project in terms of ecology and the natural ecology of Rajasthan. So it might seem a little out of context, because the most of the chapter is about water, it's about birds, it's about various habitats that are found in Rajasthan, what the Aravlis are, what grasslands are, how grasslands are a diminishing habitat. Nobody looks at grasslands as, people look at forests, people look at wetlands, but nobody looks at shrubs, nobody looks at grasses as, and when you start birding, when you start understanding ecology, you understand that these are actually the richest habitats. Even in forest books, they are written as fallow land or wasteland. So even the forest departments don't understand the ecology of grasses and shrubs. And part of my chapter is basically to give everybody a context, an ecological context. We talk about architectural context, we talk about historical context, while we are designing, we talk about socio-cultural context, but nobody really gives an ecological context to a building. And we as architects, we have the choice of not creating landscape buildings with palm trees and, you know, the idea is to understand this, and I hope it's a beginning for all of us. As Sanjeev sir said, it's the middle scale which gets neglected. So hopefully this would give everybody a little context about ecology of Rajasthan and how the HATHIGAON project relates to it very well. And that's, of course, I hope you buy the book. Over to Rajan.
Hi, good evening, everyone. As you can see, I'm a very visual person. I'm very direct about HATHIGAON. multiple levels. One, I didn't design it. Number two, I got to experience and study a project. I am serious. I mean, you never do it. I mean, case study nahi kiya aaj tak college mein. But then you get to study a project of such a nature, which is like absolutely complex at multiple levels. You know, a lot has been said about it. I mean, Hathi, Mahouts, the family setup, the structure, and the stakeholders and everyone. And of course, the journey of RMA through the project. But when the project is over now, okay, now it's in use, and you are there to kind of go through it because I'm documenting it, so I have to see it in all the times of the days, at every season, and just go around a project with a camera, which is my best friend, to kind of capture the essence of life there. You know, so that kind of, I think it was a realization as an architect that now it's my dream to, kind of remove that line or that gap between the drawing and the project. You know, it's incredible to see a space in use, a space, how it was conceived and how it is being used. And HATHIGAON is very, very special. I won't do much talking. I've contributed with some of my photographs. So there is a small presentation which you may or may not like, but please go through it. Thank you. Why don't you play the video, please?
to start by thanking Ailtrim Publishers and the entire team of authors led by Sanjay Vidyarthi for having brought this book out. And I think the book on HATHIGAON is important for two reasons. One is that it is looking at a project at the middle scale. Often what happens is we either look at a kind of abstract version of the large territorial scale, which gets manifest in development plans, it gets manifest in master plans, or we look at the site, a project, maybe even to the extent of a small campus. And so this bridge between the big and the small scale is often met by the middle scale. And the middle scale is really where architects, urban designers, landscape architects have the maximum agency, because projects really play themselves out there. And at the middle scale, you have the possibility of creating intersections between the disciplines of landscape, urban design, and urban planning. And so the middle scale hasn't been paid enough attention. And I believe the middle scale is a scale where we have the greatest agencies to transform change and to be effective. And so I think the fact that the authors selected HATHIGAON, I think it's important because it becomes a case in the middle ground. And that takes me to the second reason why I think the book is important, because it is a reflection, because it is about building cases. It's about trying to reflect on projects at the middle scale, but generally on projects which are very specific to a particular location. I mean, theory is really about reflecting what we see on the ground. And it's interesting that a lot of theory we allude to when we talk about urban planning and design, even in a country like India today, we are looking at theory that emanated from what was happening on the ground in the West in the last century through processes of industrialization. So we have to create new reflections based on what's happening on the ground in India, in South Asia, in many other parts of the world. And so I think anything that contributes to creating cases, cases which through reflection tell you about successes, but also tell you about failure, will bring us closer to evolving theoretical frameworks which would be appropriate, relevant for our locations. And I'm thinking especially of India. So I commend the authors for having selected this case. For us as architects of the project, it was a great honor. But more importantly, I think to bring to visibility operations at the middle scale, but more importantly, to create a body of cases where we can reflect collectively as a community of architects, urban designers, planners, and landscape architects to think about what might be those frameworks which will help us think through the complex, often wicked problems that we deal with in our part of the world. Thank you very much.
So one final thought, you know, this was a, this venue is especially important because everyone involved with the book was an architect. Ella Singhal, our fellow author who couldn't be here, is an architect as well. And the publisher of the book, Ariana, would you please come up, is an architect as well. Ariana is originally from Spain. She fell in love with India at Chandigarh, right? So, and she lives in Chandigarh now for last 10 years, 12 maybe, and few years in Ahmedabad. So Ariana runs a publishing house, and it's an incredibly produced book, just the graphic quality of it. So, and there are few copies available here. So, and Ariana specializes in architecture publications. So her catalog is all about Indian architecture. It's Indian Travel Guides is one of the series she is doing. There is another series on design monographs, and so on and so forth. Since all the authors are here, it might be a good point in time for someone to buy a copy so that it can be signed by all the authors, right? I think that's a good plug I just made. Thank you. Yeah, so we're done.
Thank you.
Yes, please. No, please here. Thank you. The book looks amazing. Your years of research and your depth of understanding and the ability to present the subject in such an interesting and inspiring way has intrigued us and produced one of the most memorable evenings for us. Thank you. Once again, please accept our sincere appreciation for the outstanding work and thank you for enlightening and sharing your experience with us. I would now like to request Architect Sanjay Kothari sir to please come up on the stage for felicitation. Yes. I would now like to request Architect Sanjay Kothari sir to please come up on the stage, for felicitation. Sanjeev sir. Sanjeev sir. Architect Rajan Bhatt. Thank you, sir. I would now request, yes, thank you, sir. I would now request Architect Preeti Agarwal to please come up on the stage.
Come, we want to felicitate you. Come. Megha?
Architect Megha Bhatnagar. Architect Gaurav Bhatnagar. And Architect Ariadna Gareta. Thank you, Architect Preeti. Before we conclude this session, I have a few announcements to make. Please don't forget to grab your copies of the book from the Altrim publication booth in the exhibition area. And also we have the authors right here. We have the books also. Please get it signed by them. Get your signed copies. We will be starting with the last and the most fun part of the day, the valedictory function and the winner announcement of the student installation, followed by the concluding dinner at 7:30 here at Clarks Amer. And now you can proceed for high tea. Thank you very much.